All right. Welcome, Linda, to the Heartfelt Business Path Chats. Today, we are going to dive into your story and the times your intuition has or hasn't served you, and the challenges you've encountered marketing your business and telling this story in the modern context. So welcome, Dr. Linda Hartley-Clark of Love, Life and Relationships. It's a pleasure to have you in the Zoom room today.
Thank you very much, Jess McLaughlin from Felt Brand Stories. It's lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. So we'll start with you telling us a little bit of your story to now. You know, what's your professional background? How did you come to be in this industry?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the second career, which began 20 years ago when after I had my two babies. They were very little, and my husband was working interstate for 2 years, and we were renovating a house. And I thought, I'm going to go mad if I don't do something other with myself instead of, being in service to other. How am I going to keep growing me as a person? And my first career prevented me, I'll tell you a little bit about that later on, but my first career prevented me from finishing high school. So I had always had this unfinished business ness about me that I wanted to go back and finish what I started with my education. So I enrolled as a mature age student at university and was lucky enough to get a place. And I just wanted to complete something when it came to my education. And I fell in love or was drawn towards sociology and psychology subjects. And 10 years later, I came out with a PhD in psychology and a postdoctoral research fellowship. So I worked in universities from when was it? I worked for 10 years, just over 10 years in the university sector, teaching psychology, so undergraduate psychology. And my postdoc fellowship was at Deakin University, where I was working in the area of quality of life, and was thrust into research teams. So my initial aim of becoming a research fellow was I thought I was going to have a life where I'd be like everyone else, where I would push my chair in at the end of the day. I'd work 9 to 5, 5 days a week. I'd never done that in my other careers in the past or other career in the past. So, but of course, I was so far from the truth. I was working about 70 hours a week. Most of it was remotely. It was rare that I ever got to collaborate in person with my team. Maybe once a week we'd come together. I was working solo and in isolation on these research projects that I was put into. And basically, it was just like being a gun for hire, where wherever the funding came from, you would be put into that team. So it had nothing to do, the work I was doing as a researcher had nothing to do with my PhD focus, which was in the area of mood and emotion. It was designing smartphone application courses for depression or stress management. And so I learned a lot about e-mental health, which was what it was called back then. So the skill that I had was delivering a 12-week depression intervention program all on a smartphone application. So I was writing code at one point, all kinds of different things that, I didn't expect would happen. But I was in my 40s when all of this was going on, and I thought, I can't sustain this over the long term. I had teenage kids, and the work was grueling, and it was really isolating and lonely. So, and I'd actually fallen into the more research-based side of psychology than the more practical and applied side of psychology. Again, just through, it's like a sliding doors moment where my application to become a clinical psych was lost. And so I missed out. And again, we were, my husband was transitioning careers, my kids were getting older, and I needed the scholarship. It helped to pay our mortgage. Um, so I
I
took,
was going to say, do you think there was a reason for that looking back?
yeah,
Yeah. Because
definitely.
often at the time it feels terrible, but you
Yeah,
look back and go, actually, that for whatever reason, I wasn't ready to do this next thing then,
absolutely.
actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was really very much in a place of needing stability, and some kind of consistency in where I was going, what I was doing. I'd come from a creative background, and everybody thinks, oh, creatives are, they can go with the flow, they're really flexible. But actually, creative people need a lot of structure.
Mm.
And I fell in love with the university system because it gave me a lot of structure, particularly as a student and a postgraduate student. So going down the PhD pathway with a scholarship was, it felt like a very safe place to be. And I loved the research. I loved the stats, which I didn't think I would. I didn't finish high school, so I was really scared of research methods. And then it actually became my best subject. And I ended up teaching that a lot in universities. So, yeah, I learned a lot about myself during that time. But it was very lonely, as I said. It wasn't collaborative. It was quite competitive. I was stuck in a very hierarchical um, culture and system, thinking about a university in terms of relational systems.
Mm.
Very closed off, protective. Um, they were all frightened of losing their jobs. So I didn't gel with the environment at all. Um, and as I was in my 40s, I thought, right, I've got one more go at the pathway that I initially set out to achieve, which was being a therapist. But I'd
Mhm.
learned enough about psychology to know that I didn't have the skills, the therapeutic skills. Psychologists um, have incredible skills in the realm of assessment and diagnostic analysis. So, and then help with um, the various um, conditions and illnesses that folk can present with. And I had this sensibility of, and my whole PhD research was all about looking at the other end of the continuum. So instead of looking at mental health in terms of illness and ill health, I had a sensibility and a focus on well-being and growth and
Mhm.
advancement and building resilience. Um, so again, it was jarring for me to move back into clinical psychology. I needed to go into a counselling and psychotherapeutic um, way of learning. And that meant I had to go backwards to come forwards again because I needed to go and do a master's. So yeah, in my mid
In
40s
counselling.
in counselling. Yeah. I had this PhD. I looked super important. Had the
Mhm.
doctor title, but it didn't help me in any way, shape, or form to work therapeutically with clients. So I went to Swinburne University and completed a Master of Counselling with a specialisation in couples work. Because
Mhm.
I knew at that stage I needed to work systemically, whether that was working systemically within the individual, so looking at different struggles within, so parts of self and our relationship to aspects of ourself, or between people. So, what was getting going systemically between important people in our lives. So, that was the motivation to go down the couples route.
I think that's really interesting, the distinction you make between psychology and counselling, because I have this sort of feel that there isn't probably enough counselling in the system. Well, sorry, not enough endorsed counselling in the mental health system. There's a lot of psychology. And I personally, as someone who's had mental health my whole life, I've found counsellors to be a much safer place for me than psychologists, just because I think I want the warmth of a
Yes.
counsellor. I mean, some people wouldn't need it as much, but for me personally. So I think that's really interesting, that distinction you make, that if you had gone into the marketplace just as a psychologist, you didn't feel you had the tools to really be one-on-one with people and
At all.
maybe hold the space well enough for them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it was really getting people out of their heads and into their hearts. And
Mm,
psychologists are heady in their the kinds of evidence-based practices that it is changing. So, acceptance and commitment therapy, for instance, incorporates a mindfulness component. And so that's getting people, self-reflecting, being self-aware, being in the present moment. And so these kinds of interventions are very, very useful. But generally speaking, psychotherapists have the training and the skill set over a longer period of time. That doesn't mean, psychologists stay that way. They keep training. We all keep training.
mm,
So, psychologists will then, do other kinds of work in terms of their own professional development over time. We never stop learning. Um, so that, so that you can have some great psychologists, don't get me wrong.
mm, mm.
Yeah, but
No, I just think it's that distinction is quite interesting. It is,
yeah.
like it's what works for people too, right? But yeah,
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it
um,
worked for me. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, where I was
And
at.
obviously that's the
Right.
sort of people you attract to help as well, that are wanting that slightly warmer approach.
Yeah.
So that's really why you started the business then, because you were wanting to get out of the
Mm,
academic system
it
and,
was.
and
And
have your own agency a bit more.
absolutely, Jess. It was all about it was a strategic move to, a lot of counselors and psychotherapists will stay wherever they were placed for their internship. So I did all of my internship and placement during my master's with Relationships Australia here in Victoria at the Q office. And it was a fantastic training ground. And I could have stayed on and worked in one of those organisations, but I'd been um, I'd been wounded. I found working in the university system quite traumatizing, so I needed to just be on my own again, and that felt very familiar to me because of my upbringing and my first career. Um, where it was very, very similar to, I was self-employed, I was running my own show, I was my own time lord. So all those really practical things that were incredibly familiar to me, whereas that would have been very scary to someone else. They would have wanted the support of an organization. I knew that I could well and truly, that was my safe place to be on my own. There's a downside to that. I need to keep connected, and that's why I love being a member of the Heartfelt Story Circle, because I need that connection, but I really like the separateness as well.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was a no-brainer.
So tell us a bit about your business and what it does.
Well, I have a psychotherapy and counselling practice, private practice here in Melbourne in the CBD. And my business is called, as you said before, Love, Life and Relationships. And the reason that I named it Love, Life and Relationships was that I remember I decided I wouldn't punctuate love, comma, life and relationships. I wanted to be love, life and relationships, or love, life, and relationships. So it was in all tying in the quality of life theme that I'd worked in university around that theme of quality of life, whether you're an individual or you're in a relationship with someone. We can't take care of any kind of relationship if we don't feel um, that overall, all things considered, we're pretty satisfied with who we are and our life in general. Um, Because if we don't feel safe in our own bodies and we don't feel safe out there in the world, how the hell do we look at someone that, we think, wow, they're safe enough to trust in, so I might actually relate with them, whether that's as a friend or a lover. And as I honed the business and launched into private practice, the kinds of clients that presented to me, I could then sort of partial into three themes, where I had individuals wanting to know how to be in relationship, where relationships had been very scary in their growing up experience, and maybe they'd had, a history of adult romantic bonds that didn't last so long, and they were starting to question, well, what does it say about me if I can't stay in these relationships for very long? Or, I get incredibly frightened when I'm in relationship. What's that all about? So I've got this sort of pillar of finding love with some folk that want to come to me, and then the majority of my client base are in the business of keeping it. So how do we hold on to this? How do we maintain it, repair it when it's disconnected? And we all feel incredibly lonely in it. So how do we actually glue us back together again or remarry in a marriage? And then the other sort of theme was losing it. And so I engage with clients who come to therapy together questioning, there's an ambivalence in the relationship that's been there for a very, very long time. And so a lot of the time, couples therapy is really about one having ended the relationship in the marriage, and has grieved the loss of the relationship probably for many years, and wants the third party, the therapist, to provide a safe place to say, I'm done, it's over. And so we engage in separation therapy or counselling, which is a whole other model of counselling. And within that losing love, it's the separation counselling, but also people who come and say, right, I've been out of relationship for a long time, and I want to get back in, I'm ready, but I worry that I'm going to repeat the patterns that I repeated. So help me understand how I do them so I don't keep doing them and repeating the patterns in this relation, the next one. So, yeah.
Which is why your logo is the infinity loop, because they all just loop back into each other, all the themes, don't they?
They do, they do. And the infinity loop also represents people's communication patterns. So, the main reason why couples come to see me is they say, we've got communication problems, or we're fighting all the time. And so couples counselling helps. And of course, once they're in that, one is right, the other one's wrong, the other one's good, therefore the other one's bad, then one's better, therefore the other one has to be worse. So it's oppositional black and white thinking. And they think, well, if you sort yourself out, I'll be okay. So there's a causality, if it's your fault, you're the problem and you have to fix it. And sometimes that's the case. But a lot of the time in couples counselling, you're wanting to help a couple look at how that infinity loop is mapping an interactive cycle that is circular, not linear.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And I love your themes. I think they're just so, I can almost, they're so visual for me, really. I can sort of imagine the people there in each theme, the help that they need.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who's in relationship can identify with all of them too. So it is
Absolutely.
hard work and it needs the keeping love work all the time.
It does.
So tell us why you do what you do, what really drives you. Apart from the academic, clearly you're an incredibly wise person who's driven to learn, but what is it, that deep in your heart is putting you here?
Well, what personally drives me, so the values that underpin why I do what I do, um, is a recognition of the need for separateness and the need for closeness and connection. And I didn't know this until I became a couples therapist, that this is a basic human need. and it makes a lot of sense. But for me in my personal life as a little kid growing up, I had lived experience of the good side of independence, valuing autonomy and independence from a very, very young age, too young, actually. I started working professionally in my first career when I was 12. So I had to grow up pretty quickly. So the good side of that was I had so much independence and freedom. I had money, I had, lots of bickies in the bank, and I could, I could choose, I could do what I wanted. But the downside to that is incredible isolation and loneliness and tracking through life off time. So, when my friends were finishing university, I was coming up to finishing my first career. So that it was pretty lonely. But then the need, the different poles of connection, connection can be really scary. And connection in my family system was scary at times. So I understood the fear of intimacy, but I also understood the need for safety and security in a relationship. And I was lucky enough to earn secure attachment with my husband. I met him when I was 20, so I was married at a very early age. I got married just before my 22nd birthday, and I've been with him now for 37 years. So I earned secure attachment in my relationship with him. Goes awry, of course it does. Every 10 years we remarry in marriage. But yeah, so that was the valuing for me. I'd had lived experience of either end of those two spectrums. So that's what drives me to do what I do. Yeah, I think that's answered your question, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deep, sort of inner drive that
Yeah.
relates to where you've landed, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
always does, and it takes a while to sometimes unpack that in our businesses, and also it changes, right? Like you could look at it in 5 years and you might go, oh, I feel like it's probably shifted a little bit now. Like I feel my drive is slightly different. And I think from my experience of helping people for the past 10 years, I've seen that a lot too.
Yeah. I
But,
think I think I could add one more thing in terms of the why that I do it now in my business with clients is, yes, I do see those dimensions that I just talked about, that need for separateness, need for closeness, and how that breaks down and why. But also, every couple that comes to see me has these conflicts. And so the only reason people will sit in front of me until we start to dig deeper is on the surface level, they're stuck in that interactive cycle, the loop, where it's a cycle of reactivity around difference and their struggle to negotiate non-agreement. So we're all in the business of learning that we're going to disconnect all over the place. And the reason why I do it, what I do with my clients, is to let them keep reminding them that we're not in the game of avoiding conflict. That's just not possible. That conflict is just difference. The problem is we don't know how to navigate it when it's different. So we're in the business of disconnecting all over the place, but repairing more effectively and more efficiently so that we can stay in sort of a harmonious place for a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer until the next time we disconnect. So that's really why I do what I do.
you hold space for that.
Healthy conflict. Yeah, healthy fights. We want healthy fights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's right. That conflict narrative is so strong that there should be no conflict and that conflict is wrong. And I think I have read that over the years, and I always said to my children, see, it's not wrong. We're showing you how to have a healthy relationship because we also repair it.
That's right.
We have the conflict, but then we show you repair. And it's utopian that it would exist otherwise.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, how we fight, how we react though can be unhealthy.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we've got to try and
Work
name it to tame it.
All right, so tell me, what would you consider to be the biggest challenges you've sort of encountered in telling the story of your business? You know, again, you're an incredibly accomplished woman, and this is absolutely a theme of the people I support, is they're very wise and accomplished people, but they're incredibly uncomfortable and quite vulnerable in this space, understandably, because it's not their trade and it's a challenging space, and the way we market our business or have to learn to market our business now is it's quite intense, especially when you have not had any experience of that. So what would you say are your biggest challenges is in navigating that?
Yeah. Well, initially, I had never been on social media, not even just personally. Yeah, so, and that links to my first career, which was in the entertainment world. But I was in it so long ago that there wasn't internet, there wasn't email, there wasn't fax machines. So, you know, my career spanned from the age of 12 till about 26. And yeah, none of that was around at that stage. But I was very much exposed and in the public eye. So I'd spent many years clawing back my privacy. And I liked being in the world of psychology and counseling because we're bound by a set of professional ethics, which upholds the right to confidentiality, to privacy. So it
There's that
absolutely,
structure again, yes.
yeah. And social media goes against all of that. And it is not about the therapist, it is about the client. So I had this freak out that, oh my gosh, it can't be about me, but I'm the content that counts, as you gently um, alluded me to when we first started working together. I was like, oh my God, I always want to run for the hills. I'm not the content that counts. Just put the course out there. That's the content that counts. Please don't make me involved in that. But of course, that's impossible, absolutely impossible. So the biggest challenge is that inner conflict around, I've got these professional boundaries. How do I introduce an offering? And the only reason that I'm introducing this is because I can't see any more clients a week than about 12 to 15 clients. Even when I have 15 clients, I feel ill going into the week. And I think, no, I can't feel ill going into a week. I need to pare it back. So couples work's intense. So I can't see any more than that. And the only reason I wrote this online course that I've produced is because it was designed to reach a wider audience. And yeah, that was it. So how was I going to find that audience? And one way to do that was to jump onto social media and start promoting it. So that's why I did it. But it's scary. But I
And
did
and and
it.
the and the other activities you've undertaken, like your email, as
Yeah,
well, all the top of the funnel stuff that you're just
yeah,
basically doing to contribute to the awareness and visibility of your business. Yeah, and 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we could do that different ways. But as I always say to people now, you know, I am not a great lover of social media. I'm a great lover of it as a vehicle for story. Um, but you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we couldn't reach this many people this easily. It's just that the cost is we have to be a bit more courageous and we have to lean in. And perhaps 15 years ago, we would have just put an ad in you know, a publication that was relevant to our industry, perhaps done some newspaper things, perhaps done some flyers that we, you know, letterbox dropped, and we would have been able to hide.
yes.
The extrovert people would have been happily out the front doing all the other stuff.
Yeah.
problem, but those of us who felt a bit more vulnerable would have been able to hide, but we can't any longer. It's just not the way the world works or how marketing our business works anymore.
No, no, absolutely. Yes.
And so, but your previous career has actually put you in good stead in some ways for what you're doing because you've been used to being on screen and you've been used to using your voice. So you're slowly finding your way into reusing those or doing those things, aren't you?
Yes, it's slightly different because, you know, in the entertainment world, you were playing roles, so you could hide behind the role. It's pretty common that people that go into the entertainment industry are incredibly shy, and I was one of those people. But again, my front facing was, you know, you would never know I was dying inside. Um, so that side of things. So as a therapist, you know, people will say, "Oh, you know, you look so calm," and you know, thinking, "Yeah, you want to just go inside and check me out physiologically right now." I'm just working really hard to ground myself at this moment. So, you know, and being a therapist teaches you so much about yourself. I'm constantly learning about me through being the therapist for others. So that's why it's so rewarding. Um, but I think what I'm learning about being in this media world is that it's a bit like that infinity loop. It comes back again, and the heartfelt story circle has helped me understand that it isn't actually me exposed out there. It's I am the voice for the product. For I'm just the messenger. Um, so I'm slowly, you know, coming full circle. So it feels like I was utterly exposed, and now it's like, no, I can take that sort of meta view of that system, yeah, that is social media world, and I'm starting to have some agency over and some confidence in adding something that is authentic, and it is from the heart, and so it aligns with what you offer, you know, this connection, community, collaboration, all the things that were missing for me in the university system.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's been really nice.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome because yeah, I think that's right. And it is that thing. It's not about you, it's about your business. And it's once you can start to get your head around that, but it doesn't have to be, it's almost like it's an avatar of you. And that's not to, make it any less authentic because it is still very authentic, but it's just that it's not everything.
Yeah.
It's just this business persona.
Mm.
And again, in days gone by, you would have put that business persona out in the world just in different ways.
Mm.
Now this is the way we online network basically via these channels. And yes, once you can come to that, it doesn't feel quite as overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it's about you as much.
Yes. Yes.
It has a purpose outside of you.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so that brings me to the question about your intuition. Um, like through your business journey, has your intuition nudged you? You talked about that sliding door moment that was interesting in your in the 10 years of academia. But have you had intuition that's nudged you and have you listened to it or not, for that matter?
Mm. Well, if I had have had my time again with that sliding doors moment, I would have backed myself and calmed myself down a bit and not panicked and rushed that it was as if we wouldn't survive financially as a family if I didn't keep going. We would have found a way. So I didn't listen to myself. I was in panic, primal panic, attach, 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 cling, 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 cling to something that I know that I can just keep going to survive. So knowing what I know now, I would have done that differently. I would have just slowed it down and found something, to perhaps not. But then again, if I did that, I wouldn't have learned how to write e-mental health programs, and I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today promoting my online relationship course, because how I produce that is all thanks to what I learned how to produce in these e-mental health programs. So, and it's lovely because I get to work with my husband, because he has all these really cool microphones in his recording studio. He's a musician, so he makes my voice sound beautiful on all of my audio versions of
Yeah, yeah.
learning modules for the course. So, you know, I don't think there's ever a wrong move. But yeah, more recently, my intuition, particularly around this work that we're doing together in the Heartfelt Story Circle group, is, every time I think I don't want to do this, I don't pressure me. I know I've got to post once a week. Just don't pressure me. This is me talking to myself. I don't have to do it if I don't want to do it. And then there's this sort of gnawing away in my gut. And I go to the card, your cards, and it's exactly what. So, remember that week, it was um, something like, that's right, make the time. That was it. Make the time. And I was like, yeah, make the time, make the time.
Honestly, making the time is the biggest one for everyone. And we do all have to give ourselves a slap on the wrist sometimes around that, where you've just got to do it. It's not just going to happen.
Yeah,
You've just got to make the time. And yes, it sucks sometimes because you
yeah,
don't bloody want to.
yeah,
But once you do it,
yeah,
it's sort of seismically impactful,
yeah,
even if it's quite a short period of time, it just, it's like that thing where focus goes, energy flows.
yeah,
And, it might be that you get a new client book in while you're doing it, or some incredible opportunity lands in your inbox, or something just little, like some little message that you're doing good work, giving some focus to this.
yes, yes, yes. And even today, I was at my favorite cafe, because Wednesdays is my admin day, and I treat myself to a brekkie. And it's the weather's been crazy here in Melbourne, and it's been like 27 degrees for the last 2 days, and we're in May. And then this morning it was still 19 degrees at 9 o'clock this morning. But by the time I was at the cafe, it was sunny, but the trees were swaying. It rained, it poured for about 5 minutes. And I was sitting in the cafe, the sun's coming through, and it's reflecting off two stools, the sun, and it was showing the shadows of the trees, like just intensely waving. And I went, opportunity. But it wasn't literal, it wasn't a conscious, it was like, this is beautiful. And I took it and I thought, what am I going to use this for? Oh, I don't know. And then all of a sudden it came to my mind, I'm doing a professional development day at the end of May in emotion focused therapy, which is my sort of sweet spot. And part of one of the interventions and this particular workshop that I'm doing is around empty chair work. And here I've got two stools that are empty. And I went, ah. So I just made this little reel and talked a little bit about empty chair work, and off it went. And I went,
Well done. And you know what? That's what starts to happen. That, and also I would also say that's intuitive. That was an intuitive moment you just had. And so they're the things that you go when you do have them, just open to them more and more and you'll have them more. But that is also what happens once you start to think, a little bit more about your content, once you start to give it a little space in your head and your heart, you will see content everywhere. You will
yeah.
start to see content everywhere, and it just doesn't feel
Mm.
so overwhelming.
Yes, yes, yes. And empty chair work in emotion focused therapy is actually a psychodramatic intervention that I trained. So that when I left the university system and was then transitioning back into it being a student again, and working in online universities, teaching research methods, I enrolled as a trainee in psychodrama in that method. So it was so opposite to my research background, but emotion focused therapy incorporates some of their interventions, so it's really dear to my heart. So all of that became very meaningful for me this morning. I just
I love that. I
so
love it.
cool. Yeah.
That's, I mean, I was about to say, what's been your favorite takeout? And obviously the sitting behind the, understanding it's about your business is one. But the Heartfelt Story Circle is my membership to help business tell their stories and market with authenticity, wisdom, well-being, and heart. And that's really about helping business connect their heart to their communication. More than anything, that's really what the whole program's designed to do. What's been your favorite takeout other than that element of learning to step back a bit from
Yeah.
yourself?
Well, it's just fantastic to be in a group of women. I hope some guys come along at some point.
So do I. I really want some. I know that I've coached boys
Yeah,
that would be completely at home in this space. So I think there will be boys eventually. Yes.
great, great. Um, but at the moment, there's a bunch of really cool women that we're all going through the same thing together.
Mm.
And watching the growth in the group and how quickly, through that heartfelt sensibility that is the ethos of the group and what you provide for us, um, it just jumping off the page. It jumps off the WhatsApp group. It jumps off. I'm so engaged in what the other women in the group post, and I get inspiration from. I think Amanda did one the other day where she sped up the cleaning of her
You did a
studio.
time lapse. Yes.
So
It was so
cool.
good. Yes.
And again, so we're all learning. We're all
Mm.
some not as new to it as others, but
Mm.
yeah. And I think it is, I suppose, do what's right for you or go at your own pace. Don't feel so overwhelmed that we've got to be somewhere or we've got to know it. And the fact that Instagram and Meta change all the time, that we're all sort of learning as we go. So that's it doesn't feel so daunting. Yeah.
Yeah, good. I love that because I think that's definitely one of the major intentions of it. And
Mm.
that, yes, you feel the energy of the container because you are also similar and you have the same challenges. Despite being accomplished and wise, you all have the same challenges. I love that.
Mm.
So to wrap up, tell
Mhm.
us how people can find you and what are the best places to
Yeah.
find you?
Well, the best place would be my website. So that's www.lovelifeandrelationships.com.au. And if you go there, you will just navigate to the homepage, of course, and there'll be drop-down menus, and you'll be able to see and learn more about what my online courses are about. And the latest course that I've got at the moment is a course called Keeping Love Alive. So it has 12 modules in 2 parts. So altogether there are 24 modules, but each module is only about 3 to 5 minutes long to listen to or to read and consume. So it's designed to consume it in bite-sized pieces. And that's an intervention that couples therapists use with their clients, is that there's a lot of information, we're feeling overwhelmed, so we can't actually take in stuff when we're distressed. So if we slice it thinner, we can actually understand, remember it, and then integrate it if it's delivered in this way. So whether that's in a therapy session, I've transported that idea into how the course is delivered. It's to go at your own pace. You don't have to start at module 1 and sequentially go up to module 12. You can skip all over the place. Courses, all the courses are yours for life. It's just a one-off payment or 2 payments over a couple of months. But there's also an opportunity, even you can book a 15-minute needs assessment with me that's free, so I can actually meet anybody that's potentially interested. And there's also an email subscriber list as well. So I'm producing at the moment roughly monthly newsletters. Sometimes I'm a bit longer than a month, but and I'm just about to launch a resource library as well that would be free for my current subscribers for 12 months, but it would require a small subscription fee where everything is housed in the one place. So my newsletters, my podcasts, shorter courses, book recommendations. So it's like it's my resource library, I'm calling it. So that's something that's coming probably
Oh,
within
that sounds great.
months. Yeah.
And you're just tell us a little, your newsletter is also really got some lovely meaty content included, doesn't it? Every month you've got a theme.
That's right. Yes. So this month's theme will be around how do we stop a fight? So what's the initial thing that we would do? And it's a very common term called timeout. And we know that when, in relation to our kids, we give kids timeout. But when we're in a couple bond, it's as if we regress to, we're 10-year-olds in grade 5 in the schoolyard. But how the rules around a timeout are often misunderstood. So you call a timeout between a couple when they're fighting, and you've got one of them having power over who calls the time, and the other one going, hang on a minute, I'm just getting started, don't you shut me down. So we're off to the races with a classic timeout. There's so much more to a timeout than just timeout. So it talks about that, and then it'll give you the strategy around a timeout. So yeah,
and that can just be subscribed to via your website as well,
yes.
right?
So, yeah, when you visit the homepage, there'll be a little pop-up.
Yeah.
And if you, upon sign up, you'll get the first edition of the newsletter and an audio sort of soothing, grounding task to help you manage reactivity. And then you're on the list then. And so then each month you'll receive the next edition of the newsletter. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great newsletter, the way you do that. It's just such value for your subscribers that they get that information every month or also.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, my current subscribers are a mix of new people that are interested to learn more about relationships generally, but most of them at this stage, because I'm fairly new to the social media world, are my current and past clients. So again, it's a bit like relapse prevention for the past clients. They just like a little bit of a, refresher.
Reminder of things, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right. It's super handy content.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for chatting.
Oh, thank you.
And, I always love hearing the stories. I have heard yours before, obviously, because we've worked together for a little while, but I just always learn something new to reflect on as the member of a couple when I listen to you. So thank you so much. I always learn as well.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and speak soon.